Well, welcome to the Aging Boomers. I'm your host, Frank Sampson, and on this show we discuss so many of the issues facing boomers, their parents, and what we know, of course, is an aging population. And before I bring on our guest today, I'd like to let everybody know that today's show is sponsored by Senior Care Authority, a professional senior placement elder care management organization that has a national network of advisors to help in determining the right path for seniors in receiving proper care or supervision. Whether it's in-home care, assisted living, residential, or memory care, get the necessary advice from a senior care advisor in your area by calling Senior Care Authority at 888-809-1231, or you can go to www.seniorcareauthority.com. So I'm really excited about my guest today. Not only is he extremely knowledgeable in our industry, but he's a friend, and we used to co-host a show together until I went the podcast route. So I want to welcome Bob Nations, who is the CEO of Senior Helpers in the North Bay. Senior Helpers is an in-home care as well as care management company. His operation is just north of San Francisco. And he's a real leader in this area. I have great respect for Bob. And we're going to talk about in-home care. We're going to talk about some payment options for in-home care, especially the VA. So, Bob, welcome to the Aging Boomers.
Well, thanks for having me. It's exciting. It's been a while since we've done this together.
Yeah, it's kind of weird for me to interview you. Usually, you and I together are interviewing somebody else, but
we did that for a number of years.
Yeah, we have. But it's great. It's great to have you on. So, tell me. I know that you're working hard to kind of get the message out. I know the Veterans Day is coming up, but you're trying to get the message out to the area on options that are available. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think the biggest challenge we have is reaching out to people and educating them. And one of the programs that I think deserves being promoted is the Veterans Program, because there's a lot of veterans out there, and I'm primarily talking about veterans from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, that are having to live and have challenges and actually need some help, and they don't think they can afford it. And the veterans actually provides funds to help them get help within their home. And so I thought that's why it would be a good subject to talk about today. And Frank, you know about this program. It's called
Sure.
Aid in Attendance.
Right. And, a lot of people don't realize that, the work you do, which you can give an overview of, but people have to pay privately, and it could get expensive. It could get expensive. You're well deserving of that, of the fees that are charged, but there's options out there that people aren't familiar with. Why don't you give an overview of, just what you do and how the VA program kind of gets involved, the VA Aid and Attendance gets involved in this whole process?
Well, Senior Helpers, as you mentioned, is a care management company. So a lot of times we get a call from a client and or their family, and mom or dad are just not doing as well as they used to, or they've ended up in the hospital. So those are really the two things that usually prompt somebody to reach out to us, and taking out mom's not doing well is an opportunity for us to come in and take a look at what's going on. Why is mom not doing very well? And sometimes the case may be that she's not eating enough. She's not eating very often. She's not bathing regularly. She's not keeping the house up any longer. Those are usually telltale signs. Whenever I go into a home, one of the things I always ask to do is go look in the refrigerator and just see if there's fresh food in the refrigerator. Because you can't make a meal if you don't have the food to begin with. So a lot of times that's a good sign that mom's not eating correctly. So, but after you go out and visit the home and establish why mom's not doing as well, one of the first questions that come up, as you know, Frank, is that well, how am I going to pay for this? And you already said, for the most part, most people pay privately. They have to pay out of their checking account, or in some cases we build a credit card, but people pay privately because having in-home care is somewhat of a new phenomenon in the last few years that as aging boomers really never gave any thought about. And so there was no programs out there established. For example, one of the questions that comes up, well, doesn't Medicare pay for this? Because as we start aging, we start thinking, well, I don't have to worry about my medical insurance because Medicare is going to take it over. Well, it does, and it helps pay for your doctor bills and your hospital stays and a few of those things, but it really doesn't pay for in-home care. It does pay for in-home care if there's been an incident, and it's a short-lived payment, but overall, Medicare does not give you any money toward having someone come in your home and help you make meals or pick up the house or help you shower or get dressed. Medicare does not apply to any of those things. So usually when that question comes up in an assessment, is my first question is, well, was your dad in the service? And given the age of our clients, usually anywhere from 75 to 100, most likely the male or the dad of the family was in the service. Well, given some certain criteria, they may qualify for money to help pay for the care in the home. It's a reimbursement program, so they actually have to spend their money in order to get the money. But in fact, they can qualify for in this year's amount. The monthly pension can be as much as $2,085 that they can get back toward having someone come in the home and help them out.
Right. So
and if the other question is if dad was in the service but dad long ago passed away and mom's needing the help, well, those benefits are extended to the surviving spouse as well, and a surviving spouse can get up to $1,130 this year to pay for people to come into their homes. There are some certain criteria that applies. Number one is whoever the veteran is, they had to have served at least 1 day of active war service, war being World War II, Korea, Vietnam. They had to have served at least 90 days of active service, meaning they were actually in the service for up to 90 days. They had to be honorably or general discharge. And then you get into the financial qualifications. If you can meet those first three qualifications, then we're good. And most of the people I talk to between 75 and 100 usually can meet those qualifications. Where it becomes a challenge is the financial one. And the number one financial hurdle is that the veteran or the surviving spouse can't have more than $80,000 in cash assets. That means they can't have $80,000 in their checking account, their savings account, or stocks and bonds. They can have a house, they can own a car, because that doesn't count, but it's primarily the cash that they might have access to. If it's more than $80,000, more than likely the VA would not approve them for this type of reimbursement. But if they have $80,000 or less, then there's a good chance that they would be approved based on the next criteria that's financial. The next criteria says is how much is your income. So let's just take my mom, for example. My mom is living on her Social Security today, and her Social Security averages about $1,000 a month. Mm-hmm. So if you take her $1,000 a month and you subtract any medical-related expenses, and my mom unfortunately has a lot of arthritis pain in her back, so she goes in and gets injections, goes to the doctor fairly frequently. Anytime you pay a copay or you have to pay for something outside of Medicare. So Medicare covers most of my mom's expenses, but in the case in point where she has to go to the doctor, she may pay a copay. She may have to pay for these injections they put into her back. And in fact, what we're talking about, people coming into her home to help her make meals, and because she's got really severe arthritic pain in her back, getting in and out of the tub's quite challenging for her. So a person could come in and basically get her lunch made, make sure her lunch is properly made, and also make sure that they help her get in and out of the tub so she can shower frequently.
Right.
Based on that, you could qualify because, in fact, if you meet the second financial criteria, which I was describing to you, which is her Social Security is $1,000 a month, and if her medical expenses exceed $1,000 a month or close to it, then she could qualify for aid and attendance and get reimbursed for someone to come in and help her with that bathing and help her with that meal prep.
So I want to make sure we're clear to our listeners. So in the example of your mom, which is a great example, we're not talking about her being the veteran. In this particular case, it was your father.
It'd be my dad.
That was a veteran, and your dad is deceased.
Correct.
So basically spouses can get a benefit, of course, if they were a veteran, but in most cases, they're a surviving spouse of a veteran. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Yeah. So when you were talking before, as far as providing care at home, and I know we've talked about this before on a show, but if nurses are coming out, we're not talking about that, because in some cases Medicare could apply to actually health care at home by registered nurses. So explain kind of that difference of a little bit about what you do versus someone who's providing that type of care, and where the VA wouldn't apply.
Well, there are three types of people who come in the home to provide care, right? There is a non-medical care agency, which is what my company is, which means my caregivers come into someone's home and provide everything for that person outside of a medical diagnosis. So in this case, my example would be is if someone had to have insulin shots. Well, we can't do injections, so we can't help do that. If someone is in need of physical therapy, we can't go in and create a physical therapy routine for them. So we're not physical therapists. We're not speech therapists or occupational therapists. Those are all deemed to be medical-related types of activities. Now, however, the other agency that would come in your home, and this is where you were talking about registered nurses, is if there is a need for a medical care. So, for example, using the PT as an example. So, mom's had her knee replaced, and she wants to go home. And in order for her to be able to become ambulatory after her knee replacement, she needs to do physical therapy. Well, my caregivers can't come in and create physical therapy for her. However, what can happen is the physical therapist from the home health, the medical agency, can come in and set up physical therapy exercises for my mom, but they can only come once or twice a week. And in the case in point, when you get knee surgery, you need to do physical therapy every day. Well, the physical therapist can't come every day, so the physical therapist can come in and actually put together a plan, and then the caregiver from my agency can come in and help you go through that plan to make sure you're doing your physical therapy every day so you can get back on your feet. So two different types of agencies. One's a non-medical caregiver that comes in and helps you do your exercises. The other one's the medical type of agency who comes in and actually creates the exercise for you. And then I mentioned there were three types of agency. The third type of agency that you might come into your home would be a hospice organization, where it's time to start talking about pain management. And so hospice comes in and provides care. But again, both the medical type of agency and the hospice type of agency don't come in every day. They don't come in on a regular basis. They come in on an irregular basis, maybe once or twice a week. That's why a non-medical agency like my company complements those other two agencies, and they work hand in hand. As I was describing to you the physical therapist scenario, that physical therapist comes in once a week, where my caregiver comes in behind them and actually makes sure you're doing the exercises. Medicare pays for the physical therapist because it's medical related. Medicare does not pay for the caregiver to come in and make sure you're doing your exercises, and that's where the military program, the aid and attendance program, plays a part, because it will reimburse you for my caregiver to come in and help you make sure you're doing your exercises.
Okay, so I know what people are thinking. They're going, okay, great, this is a wonderful benefit, but I've got to deal with the VA and that bureaucracy. How long does it take to get it done? And so what's involved with that? What's the process?
Well, there's forms to be filled out. It's funny you mentioned bureaucracy. In my experience with the government, you're and just like you described, it's full of bureaucracy. But the crazy part of late is that VA has done us a favor. They've created an easy form, and which means that it's much easier to fill out. It's not long and complicated.
Great.
And because they've created this easy form, I've seen applications approved in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Up to
great.
2 months. Where I started in business 8 years ago, and it was taking over a year in the old forms. Right. But now with the new forms, I've gotten things approved and reimbursement within a 2-week window. But I typically tell people not to expect reimbursement for about 2 months.
So where do they go if they want to try to get approved?
Well, every county in the state of California, and I can only speak. I know this podcast goes across the country. I can only speak to California.
It does. They're around the country in the same way.
Right.
Yeah.
There is a veteran service officer in my case in every county here in California. So in Napa County, there's a veteran service officer. All someone has to do is Google a veteran service officer for a particular area. And then make a phone call and make an appointment and go in and have a conversation about the fact that your mom's needing help and you heard about this program called Aid in Attendance, and they'll give you the forms, you fill them out, and sit back and wait for the approval.
All right, so go over again. I know you're going over a lot of information, but let's go over just repeat again the main criteria for approval. What's the main criteria?
Well, the veteran, whether they're alive or passed away, had to have served 1 day during active war. Active war typically is World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War. Had to have served at least 90 days in the service. Had to have an honorable or general discharge. Cannot have more than $80,000 in cash assets. And their medical expenses have to exceed their income or close to it in order to qualify for the benefit.
Got it. Okay, great. Well, that's it's a wonderful benefit, and you said it really ranges like low 1,000s into the mid 2,000s, depending upon if it's for the veteran or the spouse of a veteran, etc. Right?
Yeah, the veteran can get almost $2,000. The surviving spouse can get almost just over $1,100.
And is that money paid to them? Is it paid to you?
Yeah.
How does that work?
No, it's paid directly to the veteran. That's why it's considered a reimbursement program. So the way we work at Senior Helpers is we bill the client at the beginning of the month for the services that are coming in the next month, and then the Veteran Administration sends you a check and reimburses you for that money.
Got it. Okay. It's a wonderful program, as you know. I've worked with them as well, and it is a wonderful program. So, in your business, let's just say they don't qualify for VA. They weren't a veteran. Maybe they have too much over that 80,000 or whatever.
Right.
Are there other options? Are there other options for people nowadays
to
help?
The other option that I find, and I find quite a few people who actually work for the state, they were a school teacher, for example, that they might have long-term care insurance. Long-term care insurance is, again, a kind of a new phenomenon in our world, but like helpers here in California, I had the foresight to offer long-term care insurance to their employees years and years ago. So there are people out there that have long-term care insurance that pays for care in the home as well. Again, it's an insurance policy, and there's criteria that you have to meet in order to qualify. For example, you have to have a certain amount of activities of daily living that get done, like meal preparation, standby bathing, dressing, those kinds of things. If you're in need of those things, then you could submit a claim to your insurance company, and they'll reimburse you. Now, one of the I think frustrating part of long-term care insurance is they typically have a waiting period. And what it is it's just like any insurance. They want to make sure that you need the care long term. So typically what happens is that you submit a claim, and then they have you set for 60 to 90 days to make sure you need that care ongoing. And after the 60 to 90 day waiting period, then in fact they start reimbursing you from that point. So you have to prove that you need the care before they'll start reimbursing you.
Right, and sometimes there's a cap as well. I mean,
correct. Yeah.
Once all the money goes, then they might not have the coverage anymore. While the VA program is ongoing, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Once you qualify for the VA program, unless something happens dramatically, chances are you'll have that VA program the rest of your life.
Great. So what we've got a few minutes left. Anything else you'd like to share on your industry and kind of the growth? I mean, it continues to grow in home care. Is there as many companies now setting up as there used to be, or what's happening?
Well, the number of companies starting has kind of settled down to some extent. Where I won't say that they're not new companies coming into the business, but I don't see the big influx that we had from 2008 to 2012, where we had a lot of companies coming into the industry. Now there's just a handful periodically, and the challenge is here in California we have no licensing, so anybody can become a home care agency. But coming in 2016, the state of California has passed a licensing bill, and so in order to operate in the state, you have to be licensed by the state to perform in-home care, which is a good thing for all of us because number one, it sets the standard by which we all should operate, and what we try and do at Senior Helpers is operate above the standard that's out there. And now that I've seen the licensing bill, the good news is we already operate far and above the standard of the state setting, which makes me feel good. But it's going to hold everybody to the same standard, which has not been the case in the past.
Yeah, that's good. The many other states though have licensing in place, correct?
That's correct. That is correct. Yeah, California was one of the last ones to pass licensing to license and govern the in-home care industry.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of changes has taken place in California. I know.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's going to continue.
One of the other things that's happened in the industry that is somewhat alarming to me is that we've got a bunch of us, that's baby boomers like Frank and I, who are getting older and retiring and potentially going to need help, but the labor pool is getting smaller, and so it's somewhat of a challenge as a company and as a person who needs care to get a good qualified person. So what we've done here at my company is we do things to try and provide incentives to recruit the best possible people, just like in things that are really unheard of in the industry, in that we provide medical, dental, and eye coverage. We have a 401k program where we actually encourage people to save money for their future, and we match their contribution every year. We have a new program where we reward caregivers for their doing the right thing. For example, one thing that is a big thing for me is showing up on time. Well, if we find a caregiver that's consistently on time, then we reward them with what we call caregiver dollars. If we find that they've done gone above and beyond the call of duty, then we reward them with caregiver dollars. Caregiver dollars are things that we've created that caregivers can trade in for valuable prizes. For example, we had a caregiver within a short time frame of starting this program brought her caregiver dollars in and traded them in for an iPad.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a great way to incentivize caregivers to do their best and earn like bonus points, I guess is how I would describe it to you.
Well, I would say, I think, wouldn't you agree that full-service agencies like yourself, providing some similar services, the pricing is going to be similar. So what it comes down to is, your staff and quality of your staff and the services, you offer. So by treating your people well, hopefully they'll be treating the customers well.
That's the idea, Frank.
Yeah,
that's the idea.
Is the idea. Right. Well, great. Bob, listen, great having you on the show. We'll have you on again for sure. It's always
great
good
chatting with you.
Chatting with you. Why don't you let everybody know if they did want to get a hold of you or learn more about Senior Helpers, how they go about doing that?
Well, Senior Helpers is like most companies today has an internet, has a website. So seniorhelpers.com. If you happen to be looking for us in Napa, you do seniorhelpers.com/Napa. If you're looking for us in Sonoma, you do /Sonoma. And, of course, over in Solano, you could do /Solano-YOLO. Our phone number is 707-251-1540, and we're a 24/7 company, so anytime somebody needs help, they just reach out to us, and we're available 24/7.
Great. Thanks for joining us, and I just want to also thank everybody out there for all your support, listening in on the show, obviously through iTunes, iHeartRadio. We're now on Boomian as well, and many other sites. And, of course, you could download the Aging Boomers podcasts on a free app, either on your iPhone or Android phone. So thank you again. Thanks, Bob, for being on, and thank you all for joining us. Be safe out there, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Talk to you soon.
Okay.